Welcome to this Introduction to Safeguarding course, which we have tried to make as straightforward and user-friendly as possible. The course is being delivered by Julia Plinston and Christine Nichols on behalf of Community Action Northumberland. It is suitable for community groups who may come across vulnerable people in the course of their work and for their volunteers. The aim is to provide a good understanding of the principles underlying safeguarding and of the responsibility everyone has to protect children and vulnerable adults. You may need more in-depth training if your organisation's activities involve regularly taking responsibility for looking after children, providing personal care to vulnerable adults, managing money on behalf of a vulnerable adult, having access to sensitive information about vulnerable adults, for instance, to provide advice and guidance. At the end of this course, you will have a better understanding of what is meant by safeguarding, what is meant by abuse, who is at risk of abuse and what factors increase that risk, the recognised types of abuse and the signs to look out for with each of these, your safeguarding responsibilities and what steps you should take if you have concerns that someone may be experiencing or be at risk of experiencing abuse, what happens after you report a concern. Safeguarding means working to prevent abuse and neglect, and to protect every individual's fundamental right to live with dignity, in safety, and free from harm. The CARE Act 2014 sets out 6 key principles that underpin safeguarding work. Empowerment. Everyone has the right to feel they have control of their own life. Everyone should be able to make choices for themselves, and any support they require should be tailored to their needs and wishes, and should be given with their consent. Prevention. Wherever possible, actions should be taken before harm takes place. Proportionality. Responses should be appropriate to the level of risk identified. Protection. Support and representation should be provided to anyone at risk of harm. Partnership. All services that have an impact on a person's life should work together to address safeguarding issues. And accountability. There should be transparency and accountability in delivering safeguarding. Anyone from any background can find themselves at risk of abuse and neglect in certain situations. However, some people are considered to be more vulnerable or at risk, i.e., those who are, for any reason, unable to take care of themselves or protect themselves from significant harm or exploitation. We will explore who is vulnerable in more detail later. If you have a reason for concern, you should always report this to someone who is in a position to investigate. You may be uncomfortable in doing this. You may worry that you are overreacting or that you will cause trouble. However, remember, even if your observation seems relatively small, taken along with information from others, it may help build up evidence that there is a need for action to be taken. In some cases, you may be the only person who has recognised a situation and therefore could be the only person in a position to help. Don't assume that someone else is taking responsibility. If everyone takes that view and opportunities to intervene are missed, a vulnerable person may be subject to further abuse, which could escalate, could result in long-term psychological problems, serious injury, or, in extreme cases, even death. There have been many high-profile cases showing that because signs of abuse have been missed, a vulnerable person has suffered severe and extended abuse. If everyone who came into contact with that person had known what signs to look out for and how to act on concerns, they could have been protected. It is important that as many people as possible undertake training so that similar situations are avoided in the future. It is important for every organisation that comes into contact with vulnerable people not only to have appropriate safeguarding policies and procedures in place, but to ensure that these are working documents used to support everyone involved in the organisation to take action if any safeguarding concerns arise. It can be very difficult for an individual who believes something is wrong to take action. They may feel that they are overreacting to a situation, that they may be causing trouble for someone or that they will not be believed. Knowing that the organisation encourages people to take action and having clear guidelines in place as to what steps to take can make all the difference. Everyone in your group should have access to a copy of safeguarding policies and procedures and be given basic training as to how to use them. Policies and procedures should be reviewed regularly to ensure they are up to date with the latest legislation and are fit for purpose. Reviews could take place at least once every 3 years, or more frequently if, for instance, legislation changes or if a safeguarding issue has arisen, to see if the experience of dealing with this highlighted the need for any changes. The issues around safeguarding children and vulnerable adults are largely the same. However, there are differences that should be reflected in your policies and procedures. Different legislation and guidance apply in each case. There are different reporting routes in each case, with every local authority having both a Safeguarding Adults Board and a Safeguarding Children's Board. All adults, including adults at risk, have a right to make unwise decisions, including the choice not to take action to protect themselves. This is different for children, where their safety is the primary concern. There is no one definition of abuse, but some useful ones are included in 2 government documents. The Department of Health's 2000 document, No Secrets, Guidance on Protecting Vulnerable Adults, defines abuse as a violation of an individual's human and civil rights by any other person or persons which results in significant harm. The Department of Education's guidance document, Working Together to Safeguard Children, published in 2015 and updated in 2019, defines child abuse as any action by another person, adult or child, that causes harm to a child. Core categories of abuse include neglect, emotional abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. There are also many other types of abuse that are recognised, including some subdivisions of this core list, and some which describe particular situations in which abuse occurs, such as institutional, domestic, modern slavery and exploitation, and online or cyber abuse. These are explored later in this course. There are many preconceptions as to who commits abuse. In fact, people from all backgrounds do so. An abuser may be a professional caring for a vulnerable person, a parent, child, other family member or friend, or even a complete stranger. Abuse can occur anywhere, in the home, in a care setting, or in a public place. Most abuse is committed by people known to the vulnerable person. People considered to be particularly at risk and therefore in need of safeguarding are children, defined as anyone under the age of 18, and some groups of adults identified by the Department of Health and the 2014 CARE Act. These include any person aged 18 years or older who has need of care and support. This could be due to a mental illness, physical illness, a learning disability, physical disability, or their age. Who is experiencing or at risk of abuse and neglect, or as a result of those care and support needs is unable to protect themselves from abuse or neglect. People may be more vulnerable than others if they lack the capacity to make decisions on their own, or if they live in isolated circumstances with little chance to ask for help. Neglect. Causing harm by failing to provide something that is essential to the well-being of a vulnerable person. For instance, food and drink, adequate clothing, heating and shelter, hygiene and personal care, medical treatment, access to healthcare, social care, or education. It could also include an absence of love and attention. Neglect may be intentional or unintentional and may include self-neglect. Signs of neglect may include dehydration, malnutrition or excessive weight loss, excessive hunger or thirst, dirty skin, nails, hair, dirty or inadequate clothing, a cold, dirty and sparsely furnished home environment, untreated medical conditions including bed sores, emotional distress and complaints of pain or discomfort. Psychological abuse includes name-calling, mocking or humiliating, harassing, verbal abuse, excessive criticism, coercion, controlling or intimidating behaviour, isolating someone from their friends and family, and blaming the person for what is happening. Signs of psychological abuse may include anxiety, seeming withdrawn, agitation, aggression, lack of self-esteem, stress-related health conditions such as high blood pressure, lack of trust in anyone, fear of a particular person or people, significant loss or gain in weight, difficulty sleeping, absence from activities, and being difficult to contact. Physical abuse includes any act that causes physical harm to the body, such as hitting, kicking, pushing, pulling, burning, cutting, beating, inappropriately restraining, or administering medication inappropriately. Signs of physical abuse may include unexplained injuries, especially if these appear to have happened on more than one occasion. This could include bruises, especially if clearly in the shape of a hand or an object, sprains, fractures, bleeding, internal injuries, untreated medical problems, unexplained excessive weight loss, changes of behaviour, fear of a particular person or group of people. Sexual abuse is the forcing or coercing of a person into any sexual activity when they don't want to take part or cannot give their consent. This could include inappropriate touching, sexual assault or rape, being made to look at sexual images, being forced to have other people look at their bodies, or to have pictures or videos of a sexual nature taken of them. It could include sexual exploitation, where the person is forced into sexual activity for gain. Signs of sexual abuse may include torn, stained or bloody clothing, tears, bruises or soreness in intimate areas, difficulty walking, unexplained pregnancy, sexually transmitted disease, soreness, withdrawal, depression and anxiety, fear of particular people, difficulty sleeping and over-sexualized behaviour. Financial abuse includes theft, fraud, scamming, withholding someone's money or possessions from them, borrowing money and not repaying it, pressurising someone with regard to making financial transactions, use of their money or property, or the terms of their will. This may often be carried out by someone who has responsibility for a vulnerable person's money or who offers to help them with shopping, banking, etc. Signs of financial abuse may include worrying about financial matters, unpaid bills, unusual transactions on their accounts, unexplained loss of assets, a disparity between income and living conditions, or someone taking an excessive interest in their financial status. Discriminatory abuse includes all mistreatment or harassment of a vulnerable person because of characteristics such as race, gender, sexual orientation, age, disability, religion, marital status or pregnancy. It includes slurs, harassment or bullying based on these characteristics, as well as denying opportunities or access to services. Signs of discriminatory abuse may include anger, frustration, low self-esteem, trying to be more like other people, withdrawal, fearfulness, isolation or depression. Institutional abuse occurs in settings such as care homes, hospitals or other institutions. It can include, for instance, being forced to get up or go to bed, eat meals, go to the toilet, bathe or take medication at set times regardless of the vulnerable person's needs or wishes, not allowing people access to their own possessions and clothing, or being left alone for long periods. Signs of institutional abuse may include becoming withdrawn or frustrated, wearing clothes that don't fit, unexplained weight loss, bed sores, wet or soiled clothes, and deterioration in medical conditions. Domestic abuse refers to controlling, coercive, threatening, degrading or violent behaviour that takes place within the home, whether this occurs as a one-off incident or over a prolonged period. It is most commonly committed by a partner or ex-partner, but could also be carried out by any other family member. Whilst it is more common for women to be abused by men, almost 150,000 cases of men being abused were reported in 2017. It is also possible for a child to abuse another child or an adult. Online or cyber abuse is psychological abuse, bullying, coercion, grooming and sexual exploitation that takes place via internet or by mobile phone. Modern slavery is the recruitment, harbouring or receiving of people through the use of coercion, force, abuse of vulnerability or deception for the purposes of sexual exploitation, forced labour, domestic servitude or organ harvesting. It can happen to anyone, especially those in vulnerable communities. Although it often involves bringing people across country borders, it can happen within this country. Signs of modern slavery may include not being able to attend events and activities in the community, being reluctant to interact with other people, having no personal identification or possessions, and appearing frightened and withdrawn. Radicalisation is the action or process of causing someone to adopt radical positions on political or social issues. This may include grooming activity, isolating the vulnerable person from their family or friends, and involving them in extreme political, religious or terrorist activities. Signs of radicalisation may include expressing extreme views, becoming distant from families and friends, withdrawing from everyday activities, and becoming secretive or aggressive.
Let's look at how to respond to a disclosure. Firstly, reassure the person involved that you believe what they are saying. Remember, it is not your job to investigate the allegations. Explain to the person making the disclosure that they are doing the right thing by telling you. Try to stay calm and never be judgmental. Remember, it's your job to listen and reassure. You can ask questions, but keep them to a minimum. When did it happen? Where did it happen? And who was involved? And of course, what happened? However, don't ask leading questions. For instance, did they hit you? Basically, don't put words into their mouths. Let them tell you what happened in their own time and in their own words. The procedure is the same if the alleged perpetrator is a professional, family member, or a co-worker. Remember, you never approach the alleged perpetrator and tell them what has happened. At the end of the disclosure, ask them what they would like to happen now. Would they like you to call for someone for support? Finally, abuse is an offence and has to be reported. You can't promise not to tell, but you can reassure them that they will be involved in the next steps and keep them up to date with any developments. Don't make notes unless it's absolutely necessary during the disclosure. Start to make notes as soon as possible once you have the opportunity afterwards. The sooner, the better. Keep to the point, don't embellish. Use the words the person used, verbatim, not your interpretation of what they said. Record the time, date and place of the disclosure and those involved, and when, where, who and what. Make sure you record details of any injuries. If you have to take immediate action, please record this, for example, calling the police or an ambulance. The report should be signed and dated. You should also take a copy for your own information prior to passing the report on. How to report a disclosure. It depends on the type of abuse, but firstly, you may need to ring the police straight away or call for an ambulance if the person is injured. Within your organisation, you should have a safeguarding officer. They would be the person you go to next once you have written your report. Whistleblowing. If you have a whistleblowing policy, it may state that you have to inform your line manager or another member of your committee. Sometimes it just isn't appropriate to speak to anyone else, so go directly to the social care team at Northumberland County Council. You are protected by law for raising concerns as a whistleblower. When to take action. Some people don't take action, even though they may be aware of abuse for a number of reasons. These can include being worried about the reputation of the organisation. They could also have some kind of relationship with the abuser, or a concern they might ruin someone's life. Maybe they are worried the accusation may be false, or worry they may make the situation worse. When you are reporting, remember to follow your safeguarding guidelines. If you are the safeguarding officer, or if it is not appropriate to contact your safeguarding officer, maybe you believe the report will not be taken seriously, you can report directly to the social care team for abuse against adults or children, and their link is on the last slide. If the report concerns a member of your group or a professional, the procedure again is exactly the same. Should you have concerns that abuse may be happening without the benefit of a disclosure, you must report your concerns to the safeguarding officer again. Write a report including as much information as you can, using the guidance highlighted earlier, and take a copy for your own records. Once again, you can go directly to the social care team who will be able to advise you. Remember, it is not your responsibility to investigate any claims or concerns. Just report what you know directly to the safeguarding officer, who should then contact the social care team at Northumberland County Council or the police. Do not discuss a disclosure or your concerns with anyone else. If at any time you talk directly to the social care team, please record your conversation in writing and take a copy for your own information. Make sure you include who you are speaking to, along with the date and the time. After a referral and the social care team decide to investigate, they will assess whether there is any risk to the person concerned. Then they decide what action to take. This may include speaking to the person concerned, their family, and the alleged perpetrator. They will check their social care records, arrange for a medical examination if necessary, and liaise with the police. If the social care team do not act on a concern and you don't agree with their decision, you can ask them to review it, along with reporting any additional information which may have come to light. If further action is needed, then a strategy discussion is the next step. This discussion will involve the police, social care, healthcare workers, and the person who made the referral. All the available information will be shared and a decision will be made on what action to take. The wishes of the vulnerable person will be taken into consideration at all times, as well as their safety. The case conference is a multi-agency meeting which includes those involved in the investigation, chairperson, and the Care Quality Commission. The person of concern can choose whether to attend this meeting or not, or they can appoint someone to attend on their behalf. A protection plan is put in place to stop the abuse or neglect that has occurred and remove the risk of further abuse. Support will be put in place for the vulnerable person. The protection plan must be reviewed every 6 months. If the review decides that the person is no longer at risk, the plan will then be closed. If abuse should reoccur, a new referral will be made. There is a link on this slide which will take you to a very comprehensive page on Northumberland County Council's website. Here you will find organisations who can offer you direct support. We will continue to provide updates and resources to accompany this training over the next few months. Thank you for listening to this information on safeguarding. If you have any questions or comments, please email myself or Julia via the emails on this screen. Finally, please remember, safeguarding is everyone's responsibility. Abuse is an offence. If you are aware that abuse is happening or believe it to be so, you have a legal responsibility to act.